Welcome back to The Secret Truth. I'm George Butler, along with my co-host,
Charlotte Littlefield, and welcome back, Dr. Ann Tracy, author of Prozac, Panacea, or Pandora. George and Dr. Tracy, we have a caller. We have Jeff in Idaho. Welcome to the program, Jeff.
Hi, Doctor. I had a question. Since Prozac's 80% fluorine, and it's the most electronegative chemical on the periodic table.
Right.
Could you use something like electropositive, like they use for cancer treatments, like cesium carbonate, or is there another property you could use? Like Bob Beck had a product that's produced by Soda Instruments called a brain tuner. It basically electrifies the brain and causes complex reflections that cause rebalancing of brain chemistry. Could you use one of those two items to do some help of these individuals?
Good question. I don't know. Nobody's done anything to find out. Possibly many of these antidepressants are fluorine-based. So, and a lot of people that are anti-fluoride don't even realize that that's what they're doing in taking their antidepressant is basically taking a fluoride tablet.
Yeah, they found that fluorinating the water has dropped out in their market, so they had to bring Prozac online to get rid of the toxic waste.
Exactly. Now they've got so much Prozac and Zoloft and Paxil in the water supply that male fish are being born with ovaries.
Right.
And then they wonder why so many people go gay on their antidepressant. Hello.
Yeah, and it's all getting in the farming supplies now with the way water's been reused, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
right.
So, those are the only comments I really had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your call, Jeff.
So, Dr. Tracy, I have a question about, let's say, a family member, somebody out in the listening audience or closer to home has suffered a death, a suicide, or a murder associated with these SSRIs. How would a person take that to court and remedy that? Are there advocacy groups out there? Are there any websites you could recommend?
Our group is the biggest one that I know of. That's why the International Coalition for Drug Awareness was set up, is to help these families going through these things. The biggest problem you're going to run into is finding an attorney who will take it to court.
Now, is that because
are a few? See, they've already issued some warnings, and so now because they've issued warnings, the drug company says, look, we warned you, you took it anyway, you know, that was a risk that you knew that you had.
Well, let's say the scenario is that a person has developed a drinking problem, and the doctor, rather than address the drinking problem, prescribes an SSRI in lieu of treating the first problem.
Right.
And what you end up with is a scenario where the compulsion to drink is increased. And if I'm not mistaken, these drugs amplified the effects of alcohol by a magnitude of 10. Is that right?
They definitely amplified, yes. They do.
So,
they will increase the level in the blood as well. So generally, if I hear of a case where there's a DUI where somebody has like 3 times the legal limit, like in Princess Di's death, I called the police in Paris and I said, you got a driver on Prozac, and this is why, and I gave them all the data. And within a week, they announced that indeed Henri Paul was on Prozac.
Dr. Tracy, how about returning veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan? Are they being prescribed these drugs also through the VA hospitals?
Non-stop. And they are dropping dead. They're dropping dead in their sleep, as well as committing suicide. For quite some time it's been that we're losing more to suicide than we are combat. And it's directly because of these drugs. But so many are not even waking up. They're going to bed, and their parents are finding them dead the next morning just from the toxic effects of the drugs.
Well, one aspect I also thought about was that if, naturally in the Army, or the service, you drink a lot anyway. You have enlisted men's clubs and officers' clubs and NCO clubs, and so that ties directly into alcoholism also, would it not?
It would. It would. In fact, AA was the very first group I contacted, thinking that they would be concerned and really want to do something about this. I very quickly learned they could have cared less, which was a rude awakening for me. But I even crashed one of their conferences and started handing out flyers to people about the effects of these drugs on serotonin and therefore your drinking. And everyone was so grateful to have the information until they threw me out.
Right.
Saying it was not authorized.
Yeah. You're pretty gutsy, Dr. Tracy. I'll say that for you.
Well, I don't like seeing somebody treated this way. I mean, that's a horrible thing. I've got cases where people have been able to overcome their alcoholism for like 15 years, and they give them an antidepressant, and suddenly they're drinking again. I've often wondered if that's what happened to Del Shannon. The singer from the 60s, Runaway was his biggest, Runaway, My Little Runaway was his biggest song, I think. But because he was an ex-alcoholic, he was very much into health. He would not take chemicals. He went to the doctor because his career was taking off again, and he was just at burnout because he was trying to do too much too fast. And the doctor gave him Prozac, told him it was not a drug, it was not a chemical, it was a mineral he was missing in his brain. 3 weeks later, kissed his wife goodbye as she went to the store, put a gun to his head and pulled the trigger. Was he having the compulsions to drink alcohol again? I don't know. And not be able to live with that anymore? Or the thought that he couldn't stop? That's horrible to do to somebody.
And I would think with the returning veterans and with anybody that suffered a major life tragedy that is suffering post-traumatic stress disorder, the natural response to a trauma, post-traumatic stress. Can we talk about that on the other side of the break?
Yeah, Doctor, can you hold over one extra segment with us? Would that be okay?
Would you?
No problem.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Tracy. We'll be right back.